with Potomac Beads. Join me in making this Arya bracelet. Remember, if you need any of the supplies that were just listed, check out the links below to shop with us online. Gather up your materials and let's get started. To begin, you're going to put 2 size 12 beading needles on some .006 wildfire beading thread. I have about 5 feet of thread and a needle on either end. I'm going to pick up one 15-0 seed bead, and I'm using the Duracoat galvanized champagne color, one of my 2mm round Potomac Crystal in Montana, and one of my 15-0 seed beads. I'm going to let that drop down to the middle of the bottom of my thread, and then I'm going to pick up my cup button. I'm using my aluminum silver color cup button, and I'm taking one needle through one hole and one needle through the other from the dome side towards the back flat side. That's going to nestle those seed beads right in the middle and decorate the cup button a little bit at the end of the design. From there, I want you to separate out your needle and thread, and you're going to add 3 15-0s on both the right and the left needle. Let those drop down next to your button, and then you're going to pick up one more of your crystals. You're going to take your needle and thread through the crystals the same direction. So both needles through the one crystal there to create your nice ending section holding on to the button. Our next step is to separate our needles and add 3 15-0s to either needle and let them drop down next to our crystal. The next thing we're going to pick up is our O bead. I'm using the Crystal Labrador O bead, and I'm going to pick one up with my right needle and one up with my left needle. I'm then going to pick up my first spear bead. If you're unsure what a spear bead is, this one is the Aztec Gold color. It is a 3-hole bead, 5 by 9mm. I'm going to take one needle through from the right side to the left side, and the other needle through the same hole from the left to the right. Let that drop down next to your seed beads there to create our first little V section. Our next step is the same thing on the right and the left side. I've done the left side so you can see the actions that I took. And now we're going to do the right side with the exact same thing. Take your needle and thread and go back through the O bead after coming out that first hole of the spear. From there, grab 3 of your 15-0s, and you're going to grab one 2mm bead that is a pearl, and this is in the comet color. You're going to go through the middle hole of the spear bead. You do that on both the right side and the left side and give a nice tight pull. That drops that bead right in the middle of the design. From here, you're going to go back through that 2mm pearl on the opposite side and out. So both your thread and needle will come out through that pearl. Once you're out through the pearl, we're basically going to do the same thing in reverse. You're going to add your 3 15s, 1, 2, 3, and then your 1 O bead, and then sew through the top hole of the spear bead. Just like that. The O beads are going to work to actually frame in the spear bead. Again, coming out the pearl on the other side, 3 15s, 1 O bead, and through the top hole of the spear. At the same time, I'll go through the O bead on the opposite side, and then come back to the starter side of thread and go through the O bead. So both my thread and needle are exiting out the O beads in the top hole of that spear bead. From here, we're going to go back down to the first O bead and create our little bead edging on the design. To decorate the next portion of the spear bead, I want you to take your right needle and go through that first 15-0, just the right side this time. After you go through that first 15-0 right after the O bead, I want you to add 2 15s, 1 2mm pearl, 1 of our 2mm crystals, 1 of our 2mm pearls, and then 2 more 15s. Again, this is on the right side. You're then going to go down to the last 15-0 before the bottom O bead, sew through that as well as your spear bead, and bring the needle and thread out. While you're here and have this needle in your hand, you're also going to go through the O bead after that hole as well as the first 15-0 on the left-hand side. Over here, you're going to mimic the design, 2 15s, one of your crystals, or pearls, 1 crystal, 1 pearl. Then you're going to do 2 15s. And after you do the 2 15s then, bring your thread and needle up to the top. Go through that last 15, through the O bead, through the spear, and out the O bead on the other side. You're doing that all with 1 needle. That decorates the exterior of the design. And then what we're going to do is progress to add our next section of our design onto the project. With your thread and needle coming out both of your O beads, we're going to mimic that V pattern. You're going to go ahead and add 3, 1, 2, 3 15s on the right, and 1, 2, 3 15s on the left. Let that drop down next to the spear bead. Go ahead and pick up a crystal, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to decorate the exterior of the crystal with one of my O beads, then my crystal, and then my O bead. Let that drop down next to my crystals, or next to my O bead rather, and then take my needle and thread on the left hand side and go through that O bead, crystal, O bead progression. Give a nice tight pull to that and let that drop down next to your design. Now we get to start the entire thing over again. So I'm going to separate out my needles, put 3 on either side, add my O beads and my first spear, continuing this same design the whole way along the bracelet. As you progress along the shape, it starts to take this lovely design. And one thing that I wanted to mention is, as you're circling around and using one of your needles to do so, alternate seeing whichever thread is the longer thread and use that one to go around and add that outer edge of the 15-0 and the pearls. Once you've finished your little flourishes here and your little designs with your spear beads, I want you to come out of the very last one, and I ended up doing 8 in my design, and it's plenty big for my 6 3/4 wrist, more of a 7-inch to 7 1/4 size. I have my 3 seed beads on my 1 needle. I have an O bead and my crystal, and I'm going to go through that O bead and that crystal with both needles, just like I was progressing on to the next portion of my design. I'm not going to have another O bead though. What I'm going to do is make a loop for my button to sit inside of. This is a great time to do a little cleanup on your bead mat. Gather up all of your 15-0 seed beads and string them on. You're going to want about 36 total of your 15s as they kind of jump around your bead on it board. And once we have those on, you're going to check your loop size. You always want to check prior to closing off the design that you have enough beads that the button will actually sit on. If you are using a regular clasp or a regular closure, I would recommend using a wire guard or a wire protector, sometimes they're known as, and put that on prior to using your, say, clasp garden or lobster clasp or designed clasp. You can also make your own clasp for this dainty little bracelet with a Rivoli and also with some seed beads. Once all of those beads are on, and I'll reach down into the corners of my bead mat, pull up some of those other beads there in the design, finish up grabbing the last couple here in the mat, and then take my thread and needle back down through that same crystal and back down through 3 of the seed beads and through the O bead. Now what I'm going to do to reinforce this is I'm going to take this other needle and thread, go up through that loop the whole way down through the crystal, down through the O bead, down through the other 3 beads on the opposite side, through the O bead, through the spear, and tie off the 2 thread ends just simply in a knot together. Thank you so much for joining me in making this cute little Arya bracelet. It really is a beautiful design featuring wonderful colors. If you do need any of those supplies, remember to check the links below to shop with us online. In addition, you can also hit that corner button there to subscribe if you haven't already, so you get regular updates from us here at Potomac Beads. This includes new product information, new designs, and sometimes we even go live and answer your questions. Remember also to check out our beading group in Facebook for beading and jewelry making. Show off your designs, help new beaders, and really expand the awesome community that we are. Thank you guys so much for watching, and enjoy your Arya bracelet.